So, when the Poco F6 Pro was launched 2 weeks ago, there were lots of negative comments coming from you and including me about it. However, after 2 weeks, I can say that we were wrong. So here's what's good and what's not good about this new Poco F6 Pro after using this for 2 weeks. So let's start with the positives. First would be the design. Now here's where I was wrong to feel that I did not really like the design during my first impressions, because while yes, the Poco F3 has to be hands down the best minimal look for the rear part of the phone, but I have to say that this whole M series style of the camera bump really grew on me. Now this is because of two simple facts. First is the amazing white finish, and the color contrast of the four rounded camera bumps were really nice and symmetrical. Then secondly, the lenses were all on the same thickness level, especially with the overall camera bump, which means that I had an absolutely great time typing the phone on the table confidently without any annoying wobbles. Then the bonus factor is of course the phone's finish. I did love it during the first impressions and I still love it even more right now, and I prefer it over last year's Huawei P60 Pro's Rococo Pearl finish. Finally, the matte finish at the side or the aluminium frame makes the phone really nice to hold when I was using it daily, especially when it comes to gaming as well. And I'll be sharing more about my gaming test of this phone later on in this video. Now I'm going to go straight into what's good about the cameras, because like I said before, we all know how amazing smartphone cameras can be these days, especially during the day. But just to confirm, yes, it did have great cameras during the day. From the high megapixel photos to the ultra-wide lenses, where the ultra-wide lenses, even with a lower megapixel point than the main, still look great from a dynamic range point and a focal length too. The new main lenses were also amazing during the day, and even the digital 2x zoom as seen in these photos here. Now speaking of zoom, one very interesting thing that I've noticed is that every time that I zoom in beyond 2x, the camera app really stabilizes the image really nicely too. But if you really go up to the maximum zoom, no matter how stable the shots are, you will only get good results only during the day. Then the macro mode on the phone was just okay. I definitely seen better macro lenses out there, so I see no point on having those dedicated macro cameras anymore. So yeah, during the day is good, but I really wanted to test out the cameras at night. And it's lovely to see that this is hands down the best image that Poco has done with their image processing for the nighttime photos, and of course the larger sensor as well, even with a lower 50 megapixel camera compared to 64 megapixel on last year's model. Now I'm not going to go into all the technical terms in this video at all, so I'll show you how it looks and explain. Now the main lens photos at night, both indoors and outdoor, were really amazing. We nicely captured details of the highlights and shadows without any noise being visible. The portrait mode at night was also nice, and because it had a new sensor, I've noticed that even without the portrait mode, if you take photos on the 2x digital zoom, the level of shallow depth of field was great on the phone, giving it a more natural looking blur when taking pictures of more. Even the ultra-wide lens images look great too, but only for pictures, because when it comes to video, it only records up to 1080p. Which really annoyed me, because it's year 2024 and yet we're still getting 1080p smartphone video cameras on smartphones? Smartphone video cameras on smartphones? Yeah. Why 1080p? Go to 4K, man. Now the good news is that the main lens can record up to 8K 24 FPS, but it's not my favorite frame rate, because you can see some level of motion blur or jitter in this particular mode, especially during a stabilization test. But the 4K video recording for the main lens was really good, so just stick with that. But the front camera was... oh my god. Remember during my first impressions video I said, what's happening? Well, what's happening to the front camera, man? Now, while it is understandable that the nighttime videos for the selfie cameras are not the best and decent for what it does, I feel that there's no excuse for the selfie video cameras to look like this. Skin tones were inconsistent, the background was totally blown out, and even I tried to touch the screen on the skies to make sure that the exposure gets very well balanced. The camera app panicked, like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, if you don't get what I mean and want to insist of using the phone as a vlogging smartphone, here is an audio and video recording test for you. Alright, so this is the vlogging test on the Poco F6 Pro. Yep, in year 2024, still the Poco brand refuses to give all of us 4K video recording. But anyway, I'm at a rooftop as usual to see how well the audio recording is for a vlogging test like this. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Based on what I can see right now, the dynamic range is not the best. If I touch my face, it makes everything more overexposed when I see it on my screen. But if I touch the sky, and then I'm underexposed. So I guess dynamic range is the biggest issue over here compared to having a 4K camera in front. So, but this is a vlogging test anyway. So test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. So if you find these tests helpful, a thumbs up would be very much appreciated, and you will tell YouTube, hey, I like this video. And a subscription would be lovely too, to boost the morale of all the team here at Adam Lomo TV, including me. Thank you very much in advance. So the display was something like trying to go on a hot date but not truly enjoying the hot date, as you need to cut down on the level of hotness.
What?
Okay, let me explain. Now, what I love about this hot date is the phone's display, because it has a high WQHD plus resolution with really amazing sharpness, 12-bit color depth, Widevine L1 specification on Netflix, playback of HDR10 and Dolby Vision together with spatial audio certification. And side note, the speakers on the phone was really great too. Now, the whole idea of having the peak brightness being higher did have a positive impact on my overall experience when I was using the phone outdoors. The under-display fingerprint sensor also works very well with no issues too, where it unlocks really quickly. So Adam, what do you mean by cutting down the beauty of the screen then? Well, because in order for me to really enjoy the screen during the whole entire day, I had to bring down the screen's resolution down to FHD+. Why? Because the battery life on the phone when I used the highest resolution made me feel like I couldn't really fully experience this amazing display throughout the whole entire day. And I did not want to bring down the refresh rate to even not really fully experience the phone. I mean, why should we? Maybe if it's an LTPO panel, then the battery life would be better. So let's talk about the battery life next. So the exact battery life that I was getting was only an average of 3 hours on the highest resolution, with dark mode turned on at 12% battery, which is plain right sad. Totally sad. I mean, it's a 5000 milliamps of battery in this phone, and yet we have to sit and figure out what is the best way to save battery. Now, all the talk about improvements on using cooling systems and the previous Snapdragon chip, but not doing the best on the battery optimization was really frustrating, guys. Then, to add salt to the wound, Poco has decided to remove the wireless charging when there were wireless charging on the Poco F5 Pro last year, even though the back panel is made out of glass. So that fact still makes me go, what's happening? But what about the battery life if we switch down to the FHD Plus resolution then? Well, it was significantly better, close to about 4 hours. Still not really on par with a lot of other mid-range smartphones, but the hypercharge of 120 watts and the fact that the charger comes inside of the box, getting a full battery charge close to 25 minutes is the phone's only saving grace when it comes to the phone's battery department. So let's talk about gaming then. Well, here is where we get back to the positives, because gaming on this phone was an absolute delight. Even with last year's Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset on Genshin Impact, it performed very well at the higher settings at 60 FPS with absolutely no lag at all, and the phone was barely even warm after 10 minutes of continuous gameplay. There was even no major battery drain during 20 minutes of continued gameplay, and I honestly felt like I was using a gaming phone or even a flagship iPhone. Or a flagship phone. So gaming on this phone, a huge A+, being the best for the price segment. Now this could be also because the storage was using UFS version 4.0 instead of last year's version 3.1 on the Poco F5 Pro. Now let's talk about software, because there are things that I did not mention and test when I first had the phone, and now after 2 weeks I did. Now firstly, just so you know that the software version on this is Xiaomi's HyperOS version 1.0.3.0 on top of Android 14, and we all can together agree that this version of the software is way better than MIUI, with the independent and a clean looking control center at the top right swipe and the notification on the top left. Then of course there are some very useful dedicated Xiaomi apps like the Mi Remote, aesthetic changes on the fonts, nicer textures on the interface, including the status bar when charging the phone, and all in all everything was way better under the hood, so thank God for this change. And just so you know, that Poco promises 3 years of software update and 4 years of security patches, so that was also really neat. So during my use for the past 2 weeks, I did not encounter any issues, so that is a huge positive note, because you all would know if I did have any issues, I would definitely mention it. But an area that I didn't talk about that really surprised me during the Poco's keynote presentation is the improvements on the AI features on the phone. So was it really good? Well, based on my proper test, there's an easy way to remove subject from the background by pressing and holding on the subject. And once you click save, it will have a transparent background, which did a very good job overall. And if you want to change the background, you can do so by pressing and holding the image once again, but with the transparent background and selecting change background. So that was pretty neat and works very seamlessly as well. Then I also test out the AI expansion. Let's say if you want to readjust the photo to a different aspect ratio, say 16:9, under the crop tool, when you edit the photo, you can create an AI generative field which gives you some very interesting results. It is not perfect all the time, but it's a nice feature to have, especially on a smartphone within this price range. Then another very useful AI tool is Erase, where you can find it under the Create tab under the Photo Editor menu, where for example you can choose to remove people, where the AI will immediately look for the people in the photo and you can select them and delete them instantly. If only you can delete people like that in your life easily. Delete! Delete! Just kidding. So yes, that was very impressive. And there were other AI features as well which you can play around and use it according to the type of photos that you've taken. Now if you want a recap of this whole video with everything mentioned in a written format, don't worry, because you can head to our website at www.adamlobo.tv. Links to that will be down below for a written version of this review, and leave a comment over there too, because our tech writer Syed will be very happy to see you over there. So that's it. I guess we were indeed wrong and right on certain areas on the Poco F6 Pro. So the question I have for you is that what do you think of the Poco F6 Pro, and is it worth the price? Let me know in the comment section below. Now as for the next video, do you want me to review the regular Poco F6? I'll try to get it. Or do you want me to do a video to compare the king of Pocos, the Poco F3?